Joining me, as promised, Dr. Jerome Adams, U.S. Surgeon General. Dr. Adams, very good to have you here. Thanks for being here. We played some sound earlier from a California restaurateur who's getting a ton of attention because I think she has tapped into how so many people across the country are feeling, who are watching their businesses close. They're watching the people who work for them get into desperate situations. Here is a bit of the interview that she did earlier with Neil Cavuto. Watch this.
You guys knew in March. So open up the empty hospitals, bring the ship, get space for the ICU beds, but you can't crush people, the average person. I had a homeless man jump through my to-go window.
Oh, man.
I know a bartender whose son was just robbed in their front yard by gunpoint. People are desperate, and it is very, very, very serious.
So, Dr. Adams, how do you address, that part of the nation's health crisis that's also going on right now?
Well, it's an incredibly important aspect of this crisis that I've brought up even before COVID. We call it the social determinants of health. If people can't support themselves, they're not going to be healthy regardless of what else is going on around them. And we really need to make sure when we ask people to stay at home, when we ask people to close down places for the sake of the virus, that we are doing it for as short an amount of time as possible. We're doing it based on the science, and that we are providing them the supports that they need so that they can comply. And that's what you're seeing fail right now. And I feel for her, and I want her to know that, number one, we are providing extra support for overwhelmed hospitals. We've got 20,000 people deployed. We're helping stand up alternate care facilities, but we're still facing an incredible surge, and we need people to hang on a little bit longer. But we also need states and Congress to really support these restaurateurs, these other people out there, so they can do the right thing.
Well, should the task force be giving more guidance to the country on who needs to shelter in place and who doesn't, and businesses that can stay open? There's this debate over people who are eating outside. Now that is being shut down. These restaurant owners and these businesses across the country have spent so much of their own money building these tents and outdoor platforms. I mean, it's at a breaking point for so many of them. So many of these businesses may never recover. Should the federal government be taking a bigger role in how these states should be doling out these restrictions?
You ask a wonderful question, and it's one that we tackled at the task force today. I just left our task force meeting, and we talked a lot about putting out better guidance, improved guidance based on what we now know about the virus. And you and Senator Paul talked about it. We know that it is safe to keep schools open in general when you take precautions. We know that outside is better than inside, and that if you close down people's ability to congregate in an outdoor area, they're just going to run inside and the virus will spread. So I think we need to be more intelligent, more strategic about some of these closures. And we're going to try to give states and health departments better advice. But to the people out there, I would say you still have to comply. You still got to use common sense. If you have 20 people outside of your household gathering together outside, that's still going to be higher risk than if you're with people just within your household. So it's got to be a give and take, but we're near the finish line. Vaccines are coming in the next week, I think.
All right. With regard to that, there was a really interesting CDC study that showed that based on blood tests, that people who gave blood back in December, that something like 53 million Americans, if you extrapolate the number from the ones who were positive from those blood tests in December, likely already had the virus. Now we're at, I think, 7 million, something in that neighborhood in terms of cases. So if 53 million people already had the virus, how do you identify them and then work on the ones who haven't had it to get the vaccine to them first? Wouldn't that make sense?
Well, great question. And again, it's another one. It's like you were at the task force meeting, Martha.
Oh, good.
We talked about this, and right now we don't know. Well, right now, we don't know how long people's antibodies are going to last. And we know that in the studies, they vaccinated people who did have antibodies. And so it's not going to harm you based on what we know about the vaccines if you've had the virus and you get vaccinated again. We're going to still encourage people at this point to get vaccinated if you've had the virus, starting with the most vulnerable people in long-term care facilities and nursing homes. But I want to hit on a point you just brought up. At least 10 million people, probably more in this country, who've been exposed to the virus. And there's something that you can do. Convalescent plasma is a treatment out there that has potential to really help individuals recover if they've gotten COVID, particularly in this surge. So I want people to go to thefightisisus.org if you've recovered from COVID, because you could save a life right now.
That's such an
we want to
important
get
point.
through to this virus, to this vaccine.
Losing 2,000 people a day in some of the recent days that we've gone through. It's just extraordinary and awful. Dr. Adams, thank you. Great to have you here tonight.